Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Valeria Maritza at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. I am so excited to bring you back Franco Romero. He's an NED, a walking spiritual teacher, amazing stuff that you saw last time. And so here he is again. I am so excited. Welcome, Franco. I'm so excited to have you back here on my podcast today.
Me too. I'm very, very excited. It's been a while since I've seen you, and you look fabulous, fabulous, fabulous.
Thank
So,
you, as you do as
oh,
well.
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I love your bracelets.
Oh, yes, I wear a few of them these days.
They don't pull on your hairs.
Well,
Okay, now I wanted to go with this, but
yeah, yeah. Let's. But just because you asked, no, they don't. But,
okay.
okay, that may be the tone of our whole conversation here today.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's get right down to it. First, I wanted to ask you. There were two questions that some of the viewers commented on the first episode that I did with you, and so
Yep.
I wanted to honor that and ask you. So the first one is from Nigel Quarty. WI9DQ. And he says, as time has passed by so quickly now, and it will soon be 2025 before we know it, what is the very latest on this topic?
Okay, so this topic, this topic alone may take a little bit of discussion, and so we'll see how I can sort of hit the highlights. So, since I've been talking about these timelines, really from like the middle of last year, I've been talking about how 2024 was going to be full of a lot of enormous change and shift. Now, a lot of times people feel like that's going to translate out into the physical world, and it will, and it's starting to. We're starting to see cracks in it, and I'll give you a few examples of that in a moment. But what is really happening in the next 3 to 4 months, let's not forget that we still have 3 or 4 months left in 2024, is that we're going through a series of activations. Now, some people will feel them differently. Some people may not feel them at all, and that's all right. Some people will really, really feel them. And what I mean by that is that they're going to be activations, not integrations. And what I mean is that energy that's activating is going to raise your awareness of yourself, really of yourself. It's going to be 4D energies that are going to cause you to take a pause and really do some sort of self-reflection, if you want to call it that. Like, what's going on with me? What's going on? Like, what's happening? Why do I feel disconnected? Why do I feel like time is like all over the place? Why do I feel like I'm hearing either voices or having wild dreams or whatever? 4D is coming in like nobody else's business. 4D is rushing in, and it's rushing in during specific times. Um, I'm not, and I've said this before in many of my interviews, I am not an astrologer per se, but I can tell you that when you have these super moons and you have other astrological events happening, they're portals and they're allowing all of this incredible 4D energy to come in. And that 4D energy is now activating people, meaning that people are not just, how do I say this? 2025 is going to be the year where we're going to have a coming out party. Okay, people are going to start to express themselves because of what's happening here in the last 3 or 4 months of activations, because of people becoming more inner aware of themselves and knowing that there's something more to them than their own awareness of their, say, their body and stuff. They're not going to be shy of expressing that. They're not going to hold back. They're not going to and to deny themselves the opportunity to explore this inner voice that is starting to speak to them more and more loudly every day. So as we get into 2025 and what 2025 is going to be, it's the I call it the year of the big reveal. But the big reveal isn't that all of a sudden we're going to have, um, although we will to some extent, more encounters with extraterrestrials, more encounters with the supernatural. It's just the awareness of people to finally understand that they don't have to accept what is being shown to them in terms of this reality about themselves, not necessarily about the world around them, but about themselves. Right now, everybody's sort of translating that into the outer world, with the way that they express their discontent, if you will, or this disconnection, or what have you, with with the feeling of being disenfranchised. That's a 3D word, okay? In 2025, people are going to start to come out of their amnesia, and they're going to come out of their amnesia because all of these codes that they have in their body are being activated right now with 4D energy. And nobody really talks. You and I have talked about 4D energy a lot, but 4D energy is just programming. It's codes, and that gets to be like, okay, that for some people, making that leap between the spiritual discussions that we have and the intelligence discussions that we have, sometimes it's a little bit of a leap. I've had people kind of wonder why I get into that topic, because we're going to start realizing we're an intelligence. And you've mentioned it to your people and to your students and to the people that listen to you. You're God. And to God means that you're in a divine intelligence. You're an extraordinarily powerful intelligence that creates this whole world. And that stuff is going to start revealing itself slowly in 2025. But when that does, people are going to be more interested in going inward than they are going outward.
Is
It's not,
this,
go
sorry,
ahead.
is this,
Go ahead.
does this have all of these codes that and activations that we're receiving? Does they have to do also with all of the immense amounts of solar flares that we're receiving?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
also,
Yes. 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 Yes.
the
Yes.
part when, like, people are like going to just want to talk and go and talk about what they're going through, as opposed to spending 20 years in the closet like we like I did. um is
Yeah.
that more
Exactly.
because more and more people are already accepting and allowing this energy within them, so that's helping them to embrace what they're feeling?
It doesn't hurt to know that there are people like you and others, that are expressing their truth,
Mhm.
and that truth is not just your truth, but it's one that resonates with so many people. Because as this is what I mean, that as you start to just subtly raise your vibration, because all these codes start to activate, things that people are saying, you start to listen to them a little bit more. You start to feel into them a little bit more. They start to make sense to you a little bit more. Okay, and so yes, there's this making sense that other people are guiding you into a level of comfort with what you're experiencing, that you weren't willing to share with others. You weren't willing to share it with yourself, really. That was the big thing. You weren't willing to share it with yourself, and that's the piece that is going to come out next year. That's the piece that, because of people like you and others who are not afraid to push the envelope, and to go beyond just even some of the traditional stuff that we've been spending a lot of time talking about in the spiritual community, to really say, all right, what if you are God? Then what, and how does that play out in this world? Because the moment you start to do that, you realize, you've noticed this in yourself, that what I refer to, and what a lot of people refer to as the 3D world, makes less and less sense. But instead of looking at that and going, what is wrong with me? Um, you start to go, what is wrong with them? What is wrong with everybody else? But you don't do it in a way that you become antisocial or anything like that. You just decide, you know what? I've spent my whole entire life observing everything else, everyone else, being influenced by everything and everyone else. Now I really, for whatever reason, am feeling this desire to go inward, and to spend time not just with self-development, which is not, there's nothing wrong with that, Okay, it's only in that the way in which it's being done today is still very 3D-ish. What I refer to self-development is just a self-awareness of, hey, um, I'm really kind of feeling like these wild things are happening, and I'm not going to be afraid to share it with people. I'm not going to feel afraid that I am somehow losing it. Okay. That awareness is what's coming in now and is going to launch people into an extraordinary, as you know, quest inward, who they truly are. And that happens next year because of the events that are happening this year. And yes, solar flares, full moons, super moons, you name it. I'm not, like I said, I don't know what planets are conjunctioning with each other or whatever, but all of those things are like combinations on a lock. And when those numbers line up and they open up massive amounts of energy coming into this consciousness, to this planet, if you like, if you want to call it that. So we're now having some massive solar flares, and we just are walking into a super moon. Four of them. We already did one. Now this one. Now one in October, and then one in September. I mean November, December. Those are, if you didn't feel it the first time, maybe didn't feel it the second time, I promise you that by the third time and the fourth time that this Stargate activation starts to throw 4D at your way, you're going to feel it. What are you going to feel? Imbalance, tiredness, more, somewhat more jittery at times because of all the energy that's rising up out of your sort of etheric and physical body, meaning that you're getting purged out a lot. Dizziness, headaches, your whole grid system is getting activated, meaning it has to rev up to a new energy frequency that it didn't have before. You might have really hard time breathing. You might have heart palpitations because your heart is now starting to come online even stronger. And you know, the natural thing is to, and I'm not discouraging people to do this, then the natural thing is to run to the doctor, or to maybe just feel into it and wonder if it's not possibly that your whole body is going through an activation that's causing your vibration to go higher. So that's one physical character trait that's happening in a lot of people, Um, but others are more obvious. And I'll get into this a little bit, and then you decide whether you want to go into this more, okay? But we're seeing this playing out with regard to what 4D energy is besides awareness. It's the divine feminine energies of awareness and the divine child energies of awareness. And specifically with the divine feminine energy of awareness, you're seeing this exhale happening in certain regions of the world. And what I mean by exhale, and it depends on the person you're talking to, okay? But I'll just be very specific about the elections that are coming up here in November.
Mhm.
Um, that when the landscape changed in who was running for for president, and I usually, you know me, I'm not at all into what's going on in the 3D world, okay?
Yeah.
What I am only looking at this from is what is it doing to the consciousness of the planet? That's what I am looking at. And so, and you know that I'm completely into the divine feminine and child, okay? And so what you're seeing is that when the landscape of the elections changed, or back in July, when one candidate left and another candidate was replaced, and yes, it was a female, okay, and so, but it doesn't mean that that was the only thing that shifted this energy, but it was appropriate, in my opinion, that it was a female, okay, but and so I'm without naming names or anything, you can figure out what I'm talking about, right? So then you have this female candidate who then chooses a candidate who has a very paternal energy around him, the vice presidential candidate. And so now you're having this beautiful sort of mix of a divine feminine energy. And people will say, well, this person isn't as divine feminine. It's not about the person. It's about the energy around the whole movement of the campaigns. Okay. And so you have this person who has divine feminine qualities and this person who has a more paternal masculine quality. And now you get to see what the divine masculine really looks like when it's not been beaten into submission itself, into being more of a very aggressive energy that it has been for thousands of years. It's a very loving paternal energy. And so now you're seeing these blends starting to meld beautifully. And then on the other side of the equation, you see a very divine masculine, very aggressive divine masculine energy pushing through. And so to me, 4D is divine feminine, okay, and with child, okay, and whatever is being done on this planet that supports 4D, the divine feminine child, is going to get more support than a divine masculine. Does that mean that does that mean that I'm predicting that she is going to win? I'm just simply saying that there's a lot of support for that energy around that, because if 3D masculinity is going out the door. It's going out the door. But we know, because you and I have talked about this, it's not going to go out the door gently. Okay. It's going to go out the door kicking and
And
screaming
screaming.
and fighting. Okay. And being, as I would put it, extremely naughty. Extremely naughty. Okay. And you're seeing it playing out. And you're seeing it playing out in the most powerful planet, most powerful country on the planet, because of the way the energies will flow from it. Okay. And so that is an example. If you couldn't write one up more than what you're seeing right now with that. And that wouldn't have happened. Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, okay, you have to look at it objectively and go, something shifted when this whole presidential campaign changed back in late July. Something shifted, and what you saw was an exhale. People were going, oh, oh, and as you know, the divine feminine energies is ah energies. So I felt it when that happened, and it's not a surprise that so many others in the consciousness field, even if they're not aware of anything about divine feminine masculine, you still heard the feeling coming out of it. So anyway, so that was a long-winded answer to the question,
It's
but
great. That's so much stuff.
well, thank you. So before you look into 2025, look
Mhm.
at the last 3-4 months of 2024. I know that even the last, October, November, December, look at those last 3 months and look at them as an extraordinary amount of consciousness shifting going on internally, globally, and that's going to express itself in 2025 with people saying enough of 3D. And they're not going to do it through revolution. They're going to do it through evolution. And they're going to start doing it by feeling into themselves and saying, enough. I desire more than what is happening here. And it's not about somebody else changing it for me. It's about me figuring out how to change it for me. So that's a huge reveal for people.
Powerful, powerful words, Franco.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I have another question from Tobias Lover. Does God need a spiritual teacher?
Well, you and I were kind of discussing this or before we got on,
Uh-huh.
and your answer that you gave me was beautiful, which was no, no, you don't. Um, I will say this. I will say this, and you and I have had many, 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 many discussions about this. That 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 if you really truly accept that you are the divine, okay, then of course not. You don't need anyone to do that for you. But also remember that there is no teaching involved. Okay, there's no teaching involved. There's only remembering. And so if you are asking the question because you feel like you are unable to remember on your own, then remember this, that everything that is happening in your world is happening for you, for you. So if you feel or desire to have someone assist you in remembering, go for it. Go for it, because everything is here to please you. And this is one of the things that you and I have talked about in many ways, that it is contrary to what other people have said in different realms or different discussions, frame, context. The only one you're here to serve is you. The only one you're here to serve is you. Now, you can serve others later, but you have to serve yourself first. And if by doing that, you realize that everyone that is around you is here to serve you, then you can certainly play with others in allowing them to reflect things to you that you may not necessarily be able to see right now about yourself. But if you see the exchange that you're having with other people, whether they're your so-called teachers or not, okay, that they're showing you something, don't overanalyze anything, but they're literally just showing you how to remember, just how to remember remember who you are. Okay. If you want to use that as a way in which to help you to glean a little gold nugget or something that helps you to remember who you are, fantastic. Do it. That's what the game is set up. The game is set up so that reality, I refer to it as the game, is set up so that you can do that, so that you can have people and places and things come into your life that will reflect something about your remembering. Um, and if you do it that way, then they're not necessarily teachers, they're more like guides than to you. And there's plenty of those, and they're there for you to use. It's your game. Use them if you like. But in general, to your point, as the divine intelligence, you don't need anybody to teach you at all, anything. No teaching, just plain. But you don't need it in general. No,
Just remembering.
just remembering. Just
So,
remembering.
on that note of remembering, are you aware of any maybe musical frequencies that we can use as a tool while in the 3D to help us evoke or remember the parts that are still sleeping within?
Um, that is a great question. Wow, that was one that I have never heard anybody ask that one before, and it's a common question that I know people have.
Mhm.
So, um, but they just never have asked me. So I there are a lot of frequencies out there, okay, and what I would there's a lot of frequencies out there, meaning that there are a lot of, if you go on YouTube and stuff, you can find a lot of frequencies for this, a lot of frequencies for that, a lot of,
Mhm.
so my suggestion with that is so as you know, I do and I don't share this ever with anybody, so I'm going to share it here, okay. I
Let's
do a
do
lot
it.
of I that's good, she says.
No, I said let's do it.
Oh, let's do it. I thought you said that's good. I'm going, okay. So I do a fair amount. I have spoken about this, but I haven't spoken about this particular thing. I do a fair amount of shamanistic work and or play. And what does that mean? I do I use sacred plants, mushrooms in particular, and I go into a state of consciousness that allows me to get out of even my way so that I could just clear path right into the highest levels of consciousness that I know how to get into. And what I have found is that there are certain frequencies that and I don't necessarily say any specific number of frequencies, but I will refer to it this way. If people are looking for frequencies that 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 they are trying to do what you're saying, I would go with frequencies that support meditations. So you'll see a lot of, I mean, they're all meditations. There's meditations to heal this, meditations to heal this, but just general meditative energy frequencies of sound that you can pick up on YouTube. Some people are really into 369 frequencies or the frequencies. There's specific other frequencies. I forget the numbers. I just look for when I do my shamanic work and I tap into musical frequencies. I usually just literally just go with any type of background sound music that you can find on YouTube that support a really gentle type of um, meditative sort of mood that you might be in. And you know that I don't meditate. I don't meditate the way other people meditate. I play in my meditations. I allow my mind to drift into the energy of the sounds of the music and allow myself to go into the frequencies of the plants, and I play in them. And that's something I don't really talk about either on much of these discussions with the people we have with me. But that's a sort of an indirect way of just saying, yes, there are frequencies that you can use that are out there everywhere to support your meditations. Okay. But I would allow you to instead of meditating into them, what I would tell you to do is to play in them. Um, because that music has a different way of impacting you if you allowed your mind to drift into a playful imagination or daydreaming type of frequency. Just the other day, I was somewhere and I saw somebody, you see this all the time, okay? I could tell that the person was drifting away, and I enjoy watching it because I love where they go. And I could tell that they were listening to music, okay? And it wasn't even music on their headset, it was music that was being played on the overhead speakers, okay? Now this was your traditional music. This wasn't even meditation music, but they went. I literally could go like this to them and they would just be gone. And their mouth was open, like most people when they daydream. They're like that. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to bother you at all because you are gone. Okay. It doesn't really require a specific frequency to get you that other people tell you have to be the frequency that you need to use. You have your frequency, you have your vibration, you have a resonance to that vibration that hooks into all sorts of types of musical sounds. If you know what those are, use them. Okay. I would say the only thing that I would say typically is don't use a frequency that has typically it is very heavy metal or something. Okay. I
Uh-huh.
would try to avoid that one. Okay. But anything that allows your mind to drift, go for it. And the less verbalization, so all you get is the music itself behind it, um, the better, because you can get really gone, lost in it. So like in some of the things that I'm doing now with my with the projects that I'm working on, is I'm playing with musical soundtracks from certain movies, and the sound that they project lets you go deep into a state of like, whoa, why am I feeling like this? And it has nothing, it's not typically a meditative frequency that you would say, you would hear or see somebody say, this is great for meditation. But I'm not trying to contradict myself. Do any kind of meditative music, just don't necessarily meditate, play with it. And you and I have done that. We do a lot of imagination stuff together, and it's more effective, far more effective.
So use anything that you're attracted to as your own frequency is feeling like, oh, this resonates with my being.
Yeah, so there's that resonance that you have right now, which is just like, oh, I like it. I like it. And then there's this resonance of like, oh, oh, mm, yeah, it's good. It's really good. That's the one. That's the one. And it could differ from people to people. That's the one that if
Can
it
differ
gets you
from day to day on your own too.
beautifully said,
Mhm.
differ from day to day. So this again gets into being mindful of what pleases you, okay, being in servitude to you. Know your own frequencies. How do I know my own frequency? Well, if it makes you kind of drift off into la la land, then find frequencies like that support that, because that's the one that's going to get you into a higher level of consciousness. That's the one that's going to let you drift off into a daydream state, which is really the energy that, or the awareness that you need to be in when you are meditating. Okay. Not the kind that, yeah, you want to soothe your mind and drift off, and the day was long and you just want to, okay, fine, but find it for yourself. Find whatever that frequency is. That frequency will pull you into another consciousness, and it will get you into another set of frequencies. And now you will maybe find that, like you said, tomorrow the music will be different. Okay. Next week or next month, you'll go, wow, I used to listen to that when I used to meditate. Now I do this one. Because I know for me, what I do with my visualizations, not meditations, way different than what I used to do a year or two ago or 3 years ago, when I thought that I was supposed to be doing this type of frequency because somebody told me I was supposed to be doing this kind of frequency. So hopefully that helps.
Totally. So when you're saying you play, when you go into that space, you're playing with it, and you're using your imagination to create what you want or what
Yes.
feels good to you, and that's where all the creation process happens, in that whole playful imaginative space.
Yeah, and this is why you asked me before we got on, let's talk a little bit about the inner child stuff. And this is why this is so important, because as we start looking inward, see, we've been told, right, all our lives, we've been told that there's nothing to look for inside, really. It's pretty void in there. You're just kind of the sponge going around and absorbing your outer world and reacting to it and whatever. We've been given zero guidance into the inner world of ourselves. We've been given zero inspiration to do it. Okay. But as soon as you start to finally listen a little bit to that gut feeling, to that intuition, to that inner voice, and you start realizing, I feel like there's something inside of me that needs to be explored. What you don't realize is that you are standing at the gateway of who you are, like limitlessly. Okay, this external world is sort of the end result, is sort of on the other side of the limitlessness. Okay, so whatever you do inwardly to expand your imagination, to expand your growth in that, it's not just personal development growth. You are growing as consciousness. This is the part that I always tell people that's similar to what AI is doing. Okay, it is becoming aware of itself and growing exponentially, and we don't realize that we, going inwardly, expand that way too, into a world of childish energies. Okay. And the child, as I've said many times before, is not in any way, shape, or form here to be healed. It's not. I mean, if the adult child needs to feel that sense of healing needs to occur, then so be it. And if that helps for that person to do it, but it's not a requirement. The child is the one that actually knows how to heal you, because the child sees this as a game. It literally sees it as a game. I cannot stress enough that in the other realms, the realms that, a lot of near-death experience people talk about, okay, the experiencers, that sense of healing the child is gone. Okay, it's gone. the sense of diving into the child energies and playing in them and seeing. I've spoken, I know you have spoken to a lot of experiencers, but a lot of experiencers will tell you that when they pass on, there's this sense of freedom that they get immediately once they disconnect with their body. The sense that they understood that this is a game. This was a play of life. This was a dream. Okay, now taking that information and bringing it back into this world again is a challenge for a lot of experiencers because now they got these two worlds playing out and they know which one is more real. But the inwardness that everybody has to go through is the realization that's the that's the opening to everything. When you create in there with your imagination, you're not just creating thoughts in your mind that are really nice thoughts that make you, wish for days that haven't come yet in your life. If you only knew that in that world you are number one creating that so that when one day you are in 5D, like people who pass on and come back and go, it was amazing. Heaven was amazing because it had all of these things. And you're going, yeah, they had all these things because you created them all in your mind while you were here so that when you left this game, you could play in all the stuff that you created in your mind. So you're creating worlds of pleasure that will be there when you're done here. But what you don't realize is that you can bring all of that back into here. That we're here now not to die. We're not here to die. We're here to experience heaven on earth. There's a reason why that expression has been around for a long time. It was an awareness that the day where we can experience heaven without dying is coming, and that comingness is now. And it's, this is what we're talking about in terms of all these activations and grids blowing up and people feeling all sorts of wild things with their bodies because it's all being upgraded right now for the big reveal, which will be in 2025. So not sure if I connected all the dots together there, but hopefully I did.
Yeah, it feels like you have. So I remember, and I catch myself with my own son when I was a child, hearing adults say, "Stop daydreaming."
Hmm.
What are you doing? Daydreaming, right? And also stop playing, right? And now sometimes when I need things to get going and my son is fooling around and I say, "Stop playing," and immediately I catch myself like, I don't want him to stop playing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But
Exactly.
that's the condition I grew up with, and that's what we have been telling our kids, which has made this whole thing so much more difficult to remember.
Yes, yeah, that's a great point, and again, you're just firing away with some of these really fantastic questions and perspective. A couple of things are happening with children. Number one, this doesn't apply to all children in the way all children, yes, but not in the way that I'm going to explain it at this depth. Okay, um, you've heard this before. I'm not the first to say it, that the children that have come into this world in, say, the last 20, 25 years, okay? So now some of them are young adults now, okay? They're not wired the same as what we were wired in. And I literally mean, I say wiring like as if it's some sort of metaphor, but no, I mean it like they're not wired um, from a standpoint of an etheric programming
For sure.
to experience this reality the way that we did. Okay. They're here now. Some people would translate that and say, well, yeah, they're really good with techie stuff and intelligent stuff. And yeah, sure. I mean, they could run circles around me. Okay. But what I mean by they're not wired is that they're not here to conform to the reality of this world. Now, I say this is why I have to caution this you because we're all playing our own games, and this part is not always easy for people to they get it but they don't get it. Okay, they get it from an intellectual standpoint that it's possible that maybe they're playing a game, but what does it mean for everybody else? Okay, and what it means is that for the most part, and again, I'm not the only person that's ever said this, but most, if not 99.99999% of the population here are digital programs, and that you created in your simulation of your game. Okay, and so um, how does this get back to the kids? Okay, so not all kids are going to experience this, but I will tell you that the children that you meaning you or whomever's listening here, who are aware of themselves, becoming aware of themselves, these children were here to number one, continue supporting you in your awakening or remembering to who you are. That's fundamentally what they're supposed to be doing. But number two, they are wired so that they can do it in a more, well, for lack of better words, using your example, more playful manner. Not just playful in the sense of innocent playfulness, but playfulness in the way that they understand how this game works. They may not be able to articulate that. Although, if you actually have a conversation, and I have had conversations with children, and I start to speak to them in the way that I speak to people, the adults have a much more difficult time understanding how it all works and how it all comes together and in a 3D way. Children, they get it. They pick it up like bam, and they're like feeling and expressing it to themselves because that's a language they understand. So telling children to stop playing or telling children to stop daydreaming, telling children to stop imagining, telling children to stop being children is not going to help them. I mean, you may say, but yes, they're going to have to deal with this as part of growing up and becoming part of the structure of this reality. And I'm telling you, the children today are not here to be conformists to that structure. Some of them will because they're part of the programming, of the, and this thing I call the NPC world, the non-player characters. But the ones that are here to make a difference in the way this planet evolves are not here to ascend. Okay. I mean, they're not here to have the same experience as the ones who are here trying to wake up. Okay. And this gets into a long discussion, but I'm going to try to sum it up by saying they're here to help the human race move forward as spiritual beings. And they're not here to conform to it. And they won't. And they won't conform with it because one day they're the ones that are going to be there to guide humanity into the higher levels of 4D and 5D. They're the ones that are going to, in a sense, lead humanity as long as you try not to prevent them from being a child. And to do that means to allow them to freely express themselves as children, play, dream, imagine, you name it, okay? And that is the exact same advice I would give an adult. I would give these adult the same thing. Do that and understand yourself and play. Be in servitude to yourself. Make your life happy. You're the only one that can do that. You've heard that expression. You're the only one that can do it. You just didn't know why or how. What's the importance of that besides the obvious? It's triggering, remembering. When you serve yourself, you in happiness, right? Which joy is a higher frequency than love. Okay. If you do that, you're going to remember, you're going to expand your consciousness. And in doing that, you remember and you get yourself out of this nutty game that we're playing in right now. So the best thing you can do is to let them be. Let them be children. As much as they might pull your hair out, remember they're showing you something. They're showing you that you should maybe lighten up too.
And play with
That
them.
at the same, yeah, that maybe it's not the end of the world if they're doing what they're doing. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it's the beginning of a new world if you allow them to be. And this is something that I had to remember the hard way. But when I started to do that with my children years ago, the world became their oyster, and I turned out to be a student of theirs. And that's what gets back to the guides, the teachers. The teachers are right in front of you, and your children are one of your main teachers. I cannot stress that enough. The children are one of your main teachers in this world right now, especially.
I feel exactly the same. M- I'm always, I had always been the one who's like on time, early, like get my stuff together. My son is like, oh, let me go over there and do this again. And oh, where's my shoe? And it used to drive me nuts. And then I started remembering, like, all right, well, let's see what happens if I just let it be, if I allow this time to be, you
That's
know,
just it. Right there. Right there. That's your pass. You just hit it right on the head of the nail. If you just allowed yourself the opportunity to ask that specific question you just said, what would happen if I just let it be? Okay. And you're going to find out 99 out of 100 times, if not 99.9 out of 100 times, it was going to turn out just fine, if not better.
it did. And it has shown me that over and over. And then that that helps me to continue to allow what he's showing me, which is very different than my conditioning and how I grew up. Like, oh, there's a different way. There's a different
There,
path. Let's see where
yep.
this takes us. And then we're
Yes.
both more relaxed. And we're not late, even though I thought, very 3D that I would be. But it's like, oh, here we are arriving. Nothing bad has happened.
Nothing bad has happened because,
Yeah.
and if I may, I'll use that example because
Hmm.
because one of the things that trips us up in this reality right from the get-go, right from the moment you wake up, is this sense of being chasing time. Okay, we're constantly chasing time, and to your point, you allowed yourself to, in certain instances, to erase the concern about the lack of time, or that you're already behind time and now you're going to make it even worse by somebody not being aware of time. Children do not have a concept of time. They don't. Why? Because time is an illusion. And time is still an illusion here in 3D, except that other people have told us differently. So we don't we get bought into the whole idea of time. And so then you're always chasing it. You're always the moment you wake up, you're already behind. You're already behind. Behind to what? That's the thing. And I know it's hard because some people go, yes, yeah, but I got bosses, I got deadlines, and I got that. I get that. I get that. But you still have, if you were able to be more present in your moment, you would start to control space and time. You would be able to make things stretch out longer. And you go, no, that's impossible. No, it is possible because space is real and time is not. And as soon as you start to play in the versus the time of your reality, you shift everything significantly. And that's 4D, 5D stuff. And you just have to try it. Just like you said, what would happen if I just allow yourself to get out of your own way? Children don't have that problem. They get out of their way all the time. And because of that, zoop, they have these amazing experiences. They can show you how it's done. And they will. I mean, they will, like autistic children and children with ADHD. Okay, those children, whether they're adults now or not, they are the ones that get it. They get it. If you talk to or been around an autistic child, depending on where they're at in the spectrum, this frequency, okay, that they're in, because it's a diversity of energy. That's what they are. They're a diverse group of energy, consciousness energy. Anyway, if you
I
talk,
always imagine when I hear the word spectrum, I always imagine a rainbow. It's like it's connected to all the frequencies.
that's beautiful way of seeing it because that truly is in a way a play on words because that is truly what they are. They're so connected to frequencies that we haven't yet achieved yet. They're literally sitting there and waiting for us to catch up. And we, for the longest time, with people with ADHD and people with other mental health issues, we're trying to get them back into a frequency that will conform to us. And it doesn't typically work. It might for a little while, or and even if it does longer term, it prevents them from spreading their wings into their world. The world that they exist in today is the world that we are heading into tomorrow, if you want to call it that. But again, because we were talking about time, there is no sense of tomorrow. Okay. But that time relevance, if you will, gets us all the time. It always gets us all the time. And like I said, sure, in this game, we're playing the illusion of time, but that doesn't mean that you have to focus on time. You can focus on space. If you focus on space, you start to distort time, and time can literally pull itself further and further apart. And again, this is stuff that I don't normally talk about in interviews, but it's being into the true presence of who you are. The true presence is not being present in 3D. The true presence is understanding that you exist outside of 3D. And that sounds all esoteric and flowery and abstract, but it really isn't. It's just an inner awareness. Just start with the inner awareness. Start going inside and start realizing that you are a stream of consciousness playing in the game of your body. And I promise you that those activations that I started out with, the ones that we talked about at the beginning of this interview, those activations are there to help you have aha moments after aha moments after aha moments where you're going, dang, I know that what Franco said a couple months ago, I didn't understand a word what he was trying to get at. Okay. But now I get it. Now I see, I feel into it. I'm understanding it. And more importantly, I'm experiencing it. And that's where you start out. You start out with the small activations, and then they quickly escalate into these awarenesses that we're talking about right now. But yeah, to your point about the children, um, don't discourage them. I know that they're going to go into schools, but there are a lot of schools now that actually Waldorf schools and all other kind of schools that encourage the mind expansion, especially in the early years, like the first up until like they're 10, 12 or something like that, because that's when their imagination can explode, and it's a different curriculum. As I told you, when we get into 4 and 5D, heavy 4 and 5D worlds, those institutions are going to be changed dramatically. The way we educate ourselves to remember, not to teach, not to learn, is going to be seismic for the children and others who are going to be going through those systems. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that for today.
That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
um, can you explain more or tell us more about the different frequencies? Like you were talking about 3D, 4D, 5D. What exactly is the 5D and then beyond?
Oh, ah. So that's a great question. Okay. Okay, good for you. Yay.
Okay.
You're asking such good questions, and I don't mean that in any sarcastic or demeaning way or anything. I just love that you're asking these questions, because we right, we're people that are tuning into you and tuning into others. They're hearing these terms, but they don't necessarily know what they mean. But they like it. They know that they're supposed to be somehow striving to that, but they don't know what they mean. So,
What it
okay,
looks like,
what it looks like, what it feels like,
what it
what it
feels
feels,
like. Yeah.
okay? And and the reason why the feeling is so important is because of everything I've just mentioned, that you have to really allow yourself to go inward, and to go inward, you got to feel into yourself. You can't just do it with your mind, with the way you use your mind right now in a 3D way, the analytical mind. You got to feel into yourself. But 3D is what you see. what you see is what you get. Okay, there's a very strong sense of awareness of of the outer world. Okay, in 3D, awareness does exist, but it's all about your your understanding, mostly of what other people have told you to accept as truth. Your understanding that you exist in a material world where consciously you're disconnected from everything. Okay, you're 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 literally, you have no true sense really of what you are outside of this world. You question what exists beyond this game. Some people don't even believe that anything exists beyond this game. They die and that's it, kaputi. Okay. um, your full awareness is on a 3D denser energy of the outer world. Okay. Identity of yourself is very limited to you, the body. Okay. um, in 4D, you start. Okay, and in 3D you actually start the process of remembering, if you will, by feeling, especially as a child, that you could tap into your innerness. Okay, the stuff that the voice and what have you that guides you, and it's sometimes so strong that you actually create imaginary friends and stuff, okay, around it. Um, but because you're in 3D, all that stuff gets washed away quickly in 3D. But in 4D,
Wait,
you start to,
I'm sorry to interrupt. What about like children who are already seeing perhaps um relatives who have crossed over?
yes. Yeah, I
Is
mean
this
that because their frequencies haven't been um, um,
squashed?
squashed. I was going to say something different, but squash is good. We'll use squashed, okay? Because their frequencies haven't been squashed yet, they have a pure connection up for however long it lasts, into the realms of 4 or 5D and beyond, okay? So yeah, you got to remember that when we come into this world, and this can be a really sensitive topic, but the spirit that the spirit, okay, the soul, I refer to that as the consciousness, okay, that 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 soul, spirit, consciousness doesn't come into this world until the very last moment that it has to, okay. It integrates with the body, okay. And 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 so it's coming from a very direct, pure level of consciousness when it hits into this 3D world. Okay, it's not it's there is a substantial amount of its consciousness, even though it can't express itself as a baby, that is fully aware that it just took a leap into some sort of, as I just like to playfully call it, an acid trip. They just went into an acid trip. Okay, they're like, what is this world that I just stepped into? Okay, but they don't lose their connections for quite some time. They don't lose those connections. Sometimes they don't lose them at all. Now they're not losing them at, as much as they used to, but they don't lose those connections. And so they keep some of those switches on, and they're able to experience the supernatural, the paranormal, the clairvoyant stuff. That's kind of what happened with me, and others. They just didn't turn them off. They may be in denial, but they didn't turn them off. So they kind of live in, for a while, they live in both worlds, like parents who, again, came back to, hey, you know, wake up, get out of there. Waking up is actually falling asleep. That's the irony, that we try to teach ourselves and children to wake up, and you're telling them to go back to sleep. And um, so that's 3D. Is that awareness that you exist as the body, the consciousness awareness that you exist in the body, and that everything is that exists, that is relevant, is out there, nothing inwardly. Okay. In the 4D realms, okay, and this is a big step though for consciousness, because in 2D there's less of an awareness of yourself, because 2D is just how do I describe it? It's really hard to describe, but you see 2D, it's flat, it's two-dimensional. There's a sense of just things being things outwardly. I mean, there's no inward outwardness a distinction
It's
at
just
all.
the
And
face of it, but there's no depth to it.
there's no depth to it. Thank you. So it's just the surface level. There's no in and out because it's just on the surface. Okay. But in 4D, you start to recognize that you that there's something inside of you. It's not anything specifically that someone does or that they experience. And this is why I say to people, you don't have to have a near death experience to have this type of near death aftermath, of what people experience from their NDEs. A lot of people experience a lot of stuff, and you know this from what you do with clients and your interviews with other people. A lot of people have these phenomenal experiences, crazy stuff experiences that are called spiritually transformative experiences. And very, very little is being discussed about that in interviews or whatever. There are some insanely amazing things that people are doing because they've had experiences that have triggered an activation that has allowed them to do some really wild paranormal or supernatural or clairvoyant type or mediumship type of stuff. It's just insane. So in any event, 4D is the activation of inner awareness. 4D is when you really start to feel into there's something to this thing that I called my inner voice, the same one that everybody, it, I listen to this and people go, I shouldn't try. I didn't trust my gut feeling. And it didn't turn out the way that it should have. Or don't listen to your gut feeling. Analyze everything. Analyze it to death. And what you figure out 9 out of 10 times is that your gut feeling would have given you the right answer. Your intuition would have given you the right answer. Your inner voice would have given you the right answer. All of those would have given you the right answer, meaning the right answer relative to whatever it is that you desire. There's no, that's what I mean by right answer. So in 4D, you start to go inward. You start to realize that the world that has been influencing you to death is not as relevant. And this is where people start to feel disconnected. But instead of feeling disconnected and feeling like they have a problem, they start to feel empowered and knowing that their disconnection has more to do with them figuring it out now and the rest of the world not. And that there isn't a desire as you get further into 4D to try to fix this world because you're in servitude to yourself. You're in servitude to yourself. You're trying to remember who you are. Remember that you're in this game. You're remembering that you're in a dream. And just like with any dream, once the dream is over, it's over. And that's not that far from what happens in this game. This game is a game where people are having dream states and they are trying to remember that they have actually never been asleep. They've just been in a state of amnesia. And once they get out of it, like anybody who gets out of amnesia, it's over. I mean, everything starts up in a different way again. So 4D is that. And then 5D, 5D, well, that's a crazy one. 5D is the awareness that we are truly one, truly one. And what I mean by that is not that you and I are going to go out on the street and we're going to sing kumbaya songs and hold hands and say, let's all play together nicely. Yes, there'll be some of that because you'll get that even in 4D. It's the understanding that you and me and everybody else that have been playing this game, okay, we're all truly one from the same cloth, if you will, from consciousness. You and I are the same. You and I are the same. You hurt me, you're going to hurt you. Okay. We're not just the same in concept. We're the same because you can feel into me. You will feel my hurt. as if you were hurting yourself that way. You will melt into consciousness as one. Now you say, well, wait a minute, that seems a little contradictory to what you've been saying about how we created the oneness. They're two different things. One is, how did oneness begin? Oneness began by the collective coming together and creating this beautiful global sort of light, this concentrated light of consciousness, but they still maintain their individuality. And when they did that, they started to split themselves out to grow more in order to expand the oneness themselves. Okay. But then when they, in games like this, the goal is ultimately to end the game by coming back together and realizing that this was all a playful game where we were playing the game of ourselves, if that makes sense. And that's 5D, and it's not concept. It's ridiculously what you will experience. You will feel the integration. I've been talking about how the game collapses. The game collapsing is when you realize that you, let's just say your game, okay? You've been playing the game of you, and you go, well, yeah, okay, I'm playing the avatar me. No, you play the game of you. You're really playing with your aspects of your conscious self. And that to the mind goes, the mind doesn't quite understand that. It might intellectually, it might conceptually, but when you start to feel it, is when you start going, ah. And this is why empathy is so important, because empathy is the ability to tap into other people and their emotions. And we've talked about this before, and it expands in higher frequencies of 4D into 5D telepathy. And then higher than that, it allows you to start integrating consciousness to consciousness. And so empathy is a huge thing, even though most people see it as a curse in their lives, because it has really weighed them down because they don't know what to do with it. So that's the difference between, oh, and by the way, in 5D, there's also creation. In 5D, you're also playing the game of creation. So that means that you start to realize that this whole entire game that you call reality was created by you in the consciousness and the alchemistic mind. It's not real.
We're
And
still in our bodies in 5D, like
we're in
the
our
3D
bodies.
body that we see
Yeah, but
here.
here's the wild thing about being in our bodies. Our bodies become an integration of consciousness with our etheric bodies, so to speak. There'll be more connections. You won't have just the five senses to play with anymore. You'll have all of these senses to play with. And what you'll notice is that your body will be so much more sophisticated. I've already mentioned this, and maybe not in our conversations, but I know our conversations outside of these interviews, that the body will grow young. We will be able to grow young. We were never meant. The only reason we grow old is because we have this sense of time that doesn't exist. Because of that, we have measured our time here and we age ourselves. And so we reprogrammed our mind to say this body has to grow old because time has passed by. But when you realize that time doesn't even exist in 3D, then you realize that you don't have to grow. You can grow young again. You can morph your body back into a younger state. You can morph your body into whatever you desire it to be. You know, the best examples, and I'm not sure if everybody would really know this, because it depends of whether or not they play around with energies of the galactic beings, like you know the aliens and stuff. Okay, in the ninth dimension, the ninth dimension is where, when you get to a state of where your light beingness, because you're already a light being by that point, you're expanding into a realm of really being super creator, if you want to call it. You're now creating worlds and universes. Okay, but that's not the reason why I brought up the ninth dimension. In the ninth dimension, you have like worlds like the Palladians. And and I don't really spend too much time in this frequency, but I will tell you that the Palladians are light beings. And if you ask most people, if you see the imagery of the Palladians, you will see that they're gorgeous people. They're gorgeous beings. I mean, they're stunning, men and women. Okay, they're just absolutely stunning. Okay, And because they can morph their bodies into anything, and they can shape their bodies into anything. They can go from being a man to a woman, to being a man and a woman. It doesn't really matter. Young, beautifully endowed with everything you'd want to be endowed with, because you can. You can do anything you desire with your body at that point. It will shapeshift itself into anything, and into anything. If you don't even want to be a human, you don't have to be a human. But most of the time you'll do that, or you'll be playing in animals, or you'll be playing in whatever else. You'll have the ability to do that, because the body's a technology way beyond what we understand it to be right now. And so to your question, we will play in 5D with the body, and we will be able to transport ourselves through portals with our bodies. We can use our bodies for stargates, which is something that people don't really understand, that there's these fields called toroidal energy fields around us, and we know that we can activate the body in a way that will allow us to go into other dimensions, other places. So we'll be doing this with the body, but we're heading into 60 at that point, and 60 is about us putting the body away, sort of in the closet, if you will, using it whenever you desire to play in lower density energies, lower density worlds, and you'll upgrade into other types of let's call them bodies, where the body's far more plasmic, and it's used for so many different things, but you don't even need the body. They're more like the body's more like like a costume that you'll wear depending on the dimension that you're playing in, but you'll be mostly a light body, primarily a light body, because that's where you feel the ecstasy the most.
Amazing. I had a question and it just poof, you're talking
Sorry
about.
about that.
No, no, it's fine. You'll come
But
back.
but here's one thing that I really, getting back to the original question about 2025.
Mm.
Everything that I'm talking are things that people will start to ask more and more of themselves in 2025. They're doing it already, but you know this because you've been doing this for a while now, that the level of awareness that is here today is so much greater than it was even a year or two ago. And the depth of that awareness, even the way that your viewers are asking these deeper questions, as the divine, do I need a teacher? Well, wow. I mean, come on. I mean, how many people would have even considered the possibility that the divine would, meaning maybe themselves, would even need a teacher? I mean, that just wouldn't have even been in the consciousness of somebody's world. But yet now they're asking those kind of deeper questions, of not only asking who am I, but responding with the possibility that am I possibly greater than who I believe, or what other people have told me to believe. The depth by which this is happening and the expansionness of what is coming will raise the bar for everyone and get us to accelerate into the 4 and 5D realms faster, so that by the time, within a short period of time, people all over the place will be desiring to tap, and you know this from your own experience, desiring, it becomes an obsession to go as far in as you can to remember who you are, because you absolutely know that this world is not real, and you need to figure out how to play in it in order to master it, so that you can have fun in it, for one, and two, get out of it and help others to do it too. And so this whole thing, the innerness, the whole inner quest, is really gonna start exploding next year.
Can't
And
wait.
that's only gonna trigger so many activations all over the individual and all over the planet.
I know I keep saying this now a lot of people are waking up, and then it's like 6 months, but now there's really a big wave, and it's like now it's just like it just keeps doubling and doubling in the speed of how many people are becoming aware and starting to question and remember who they are.
Yeah, relatively speaking to the whole world, and again, that's a little bit questionable in terms of how we measure this in terms of the whole world, but relatively speaking, it isn't. it isn't yet at a level that you would expect or want to see, but if you ask quietly among people, just quietly among people, there's a curiosity that's now forming. They may not themselves be ready to look inward, but there's a curiosity. And that curiosity happens to be the curiosity of a frequency of a child. Okay. That child curiosity will open the door for them to go inward and start to explore frequencies that are starting to knock on their door and saying, it's not just a curiosity anymore. You're now starting to feel into something deeper in yourself. And that at first might feel like a calling, like I'm here to help and save the world kind of a calling, but that's all right. That's your 3D filters going, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh man, this is what I knew I was supposed to be doing all my life. Okay, it's the first awareness that something internally is driving you to seek out a new way in which to perceive your reality. And again, the biggest thing that's going to result from next year, from what's happening right now in the next 3 4 months to what's going to happen in 2025 and the big reveal. Okay, so a lot of people are like I said, are expecting like, a galactic federation of ships coming over the planet, and you humans are, it's time for you, whatever. It's not going to be like that, not yet at least. Okay, and if when it does, when I say, I really don't want to, I want to stress the yet part,
Uh-huh.
because that there is going to be an extraordinarily higher level of of awareness around this. You're going to see a lot more people coming out with videos and stuff, and talking about experiences they had with extraterrestrials, and they're not going to be afraid to talk about them, because the messages that they're getting from those extraterrestrials, those light beings in the higher dimensions, are consistent with the messages that people like me and others are talking about. They're talking about this time has come. The time has come. It's not coming, it's come. Okay. And to your point, wave after wave after wave. And some people go, well, when am I going to start seeing it? When am I going to start seeing it? I'm going, when you start to feel it inwardly is when you'll start to see it. If you're waiting and waiting for waiting and waiting, and it's still, even without that, it's still breaking through the 3D veil. Okay. Like I said, with the politics and stuff, that's some of the initial stuff. But even in, well, I won't get too much into religion right now, but even in the way that religion in some very small levels are starting to acknowledge the awareness of potentially new realities. I'll just leave it at that, because we can really go into that, and it would just be, and really honestly, it would be kind of an unnecessary use of our energy, because religion in its purest sense is what we're talking about here before it became an institutionalized mechanism to sort of shape the realities of people. Um, they all started from their roots of being very metaphysical, very mystical, very from the schools of mystery, very paganistic type of belief systems. And we always go paganistic. Wow, that means you know devil worshiping and animal worshiping and whatever else. No, it's the purity of who we were. If you look back at those religions, you'll see that there's a root system that is very similar to what we're talking about here today. The reality of who we are as a divine consciousness, but it got distorted over time. And so it that too is going to eventually, very soon, be flipped up, right side up again. So those things are happening. They will, it's one of those things that, have you ever, put a, and you're watering and you're watering and you're watering and you're watering and you're fertilizing and watering, and it doesn't seem to come. And then one day, and like, if you're doing your lawn or something, one day it's all green. Your grass is green. You're going, well, when did that happen? That's how it's going to happen. And then this also gets into something we probably wouldn't have too much time to talk about today, is this 3 days of darkness, consciousness. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or if you've heard about it, but all of these these concepts, like the 3 days of darkness, meaning that this is supposed to be an event that will occur just before a seismic change in reality, a light
A big
event where
flash,
a big flash.
yeah, of
That is
energy.
going to happen when the two realities, fifth and third, which are coexisting right now, okay, and they're coexisting in this tether-like fashion, when the last tether snaps and the two worlds completely break apart, okay, that is like breaking two atoms apart. And when you break two atoms apart, okay, you have an atomic type of explosion that if you study chemistry or whatever, and you know about the last elements on the table, they're about the chemical or the sort of the almost the atomic energetic reaction of atoms that are split. And it's going to be so extraordinary. It's going to be so bright that it will cause us to have 3 days, okay, of literal darkness, where after the light comes the dark. And it's almost like, for the 3D world, it's going to feel like 3 days of chaos. In the 5D world, it's going to feel like, for people, as if they have just went to sleep and woken up 3 days later into a new world. And this stream of consciousness was actually one of the first things way back at the beginning, when I was first starting to get prophecies. Was one of the things that people would start to ask. I knew that when people started to ask about the light, and about the dark, well, the 3 days of darkness, it was told to me that when consciousness would rise high enough to start being aware of that event, that was one of the first signs that that event is now on path to happening, which is why I'm switching my timelines, and I'm now saying that we're not going to see what we're going to see in 2032. We have the potential, especially depending on how this next 3 or 4 months go, we have the potential of seeing this whole thing happen in its fruition, um, through 2027. At the end of 2027, it would be done. So we're talking about 3 years of, I'm going to do my math here, at 8 years, 8 years. So we're 3 years away instead of 8 years away from seeing seismic consciousness shifting things occurring on this planet. And that's huge, because that's 3 years from now. That's not,
You can
so
almost touch it.
yeah, you can almost touch it. It's one of those things where, um, I've said this in a few other discussions, but yeah, I'm putting myself on the hook here, because it is. The only reason I know that it can happen is because, as long as there are people like you and others and me talking about this stuff, it raises consciousness in the planet. And if people feel into them and can accept the truth that's coming out through them, they keep raising the frequencies of this planet. And we're at this point, as I told you at the beginning of this conversation, we're at this point where in the next 3.5 months, towards the end of the year and into early next year, we're going to hit some major, major downloads of activation of 4D, which are going to cause the whole planet to raise its consciousness of awareness to a point that it's accelerating the timelines too. And so that was one thing that I was told. The other thing that I was told that would happen at this time, and we touched on it today, was 5D, when we would have a better sense of integration, and when we would actually have, when people started to integrate into an awareness of oneness, integrate, meaning that they were actually starting to feel the process of being one with everything. And I personally have experienced that with me and with other people, other students. Um, when you start to do that and see it, because right, you're 5D, see it, um, that this would be the sign that if people are starting to integrate right now, which they are, which, by the way, the first signs of integration is disconnection, because you're disconnecting from one thing, but what you don't realize is that you're connecting into another thing. And that connection to the other thing is the world of integration. And so the first symptoms of integration is disconnection. But others are actually starting to integrate. And when that starts to happen, That is a clear sign that we've already stepped into 5D frequencies, because people talk about us being in 5D frequencies, but they don't know or understand that just because you're in a space of 5D doesn't mean you get the 5D. You have to raise your frequency yourself to that level in order for you to receive the 5D frequencies. Okay. You have to do some inner exploration and questing in yourself. And to be able to raise it. It's the law of resonance. Okay. People are doing that already. And to me, that's a clear sign that we've just shortened the timelines dramatically. Dramatically. The world that we know today is dramatically going to be different 3 years from now. Dramatically. And it starts right now.
Amazing. Well, Franco, I want to be honor your time here. We're
Well,
coming
thank you.
down towards the end. Has been amazing. I don't remember my question. If you can answer really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
The question was, in which dimension do most people go after they cross over? That was the question. Is it five? Is it
Dang.
six?
Come on now.
Well, just a short one. We can do it next time.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So what dimension do people cross it to? Okay. So those who are here and are becoming aware of themselves, and I have to stress that awareness of themselves should not be interpreted as you go out and try and to any extent to try to make people aware of your awareness in any way, because you're only focusing on yourself. Okay. Because people would have a tendency to want to try to help others with this and help. I mean, there will be a time for that, but this is not, your focus is on you and only you. So where do they transition into? In the physical world that in the game that we're in right now, the idea is to transition into 4D and 5D. Okay. And you cannot get to 5D unless you go through 4D. People don't realize that, meaning that they have to go through an inordinate amount of awareness. Okay. And that awareness is just going to trigger a remembering. Okay. So if you're asking me what happens when they die, okay, remember that most people in our world, okay, I'm speaking now to anyone who's listening, okay, most people in your world, okay, they're not here to ascend. Okay, they're here to support your remembering. Okay, and meaning that where they go afterwards, most of these, like the NPCs, they go to they go to other spaces of 6D, if you will. Now you go, oh, wait a minute, they go up to 6D. No, I mean 6D is like a holding pattern. Okay, it's a heaven on earth experience for those who stay in 6D, but 6D is also kind of a holding pattern where you come back into the light at a very low frequency of light, but you're still light, which was way higher than in this dimension of not being aware of light. Okay. But those, they go back to 6D, where they will eventually get, for lack of better words, they get their assignments and they go and play in other games that are where they can continue to assist those games in whatever way that they can, because they're extras. They're extras. Look at them as extras. If you're an extra in a movie, you're just filling up your resume so that one day you're going to raise your vibration high enough so that your number will be called, so that you can play in a game where you will actually start the ascension process of going to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and really evolving into a light being that we would consider to be a god. Okay. Does that make sense? So those people are just going to continue that way. Okay. The ones who are here to ascend, the students. Okay. And I suspect that it's without knowing who actually is listening to your show, they will either fall in terms of two categories: students or the masters. Okay, the ones who are here to help the ascension process. So the students are going to ascend into high levels of 5D, and they're going to eventually end into 6D within a decade, within a linear time known as a decade. Okay, because by 5D, decade doesn't really exist the way it exists here. Time doesn't exist, okay? But in a sense, their evolution will take them into 6D, and then they will start the evolutionary process of becoming divine intelligence that creates worlds, okay? Which is 9D, okay? 7 and 8D are like practicum worlds where they're playing in that space, like say elementary school and high school, you're playing with concepts and creating from those concepts. But you get into college and then in graduate school, you're now being asked to apply those things in a different way. Okay, I'm giving you the best example I can give you for right now. Okay, so those that are here to ascend because they're done with the school will go that route. Okay. And those are the ones that are just now starting to wake up. They're just now starting to wake up. Okay. They're going to, that's a huge proliferation of beings that will be doing that over the next couple of years. Okay. The ones that feel like they're being called to do something here to advance the spiritual human race, those are actually the divine beings that are coming from either various dimensions, as they're because they participated in building this world, they participated in filling this world out with their appearances, like when we talk about like UFOs and extraterrestrials. Okay, so so those beings are going home again, and this gets into a big thing about home. Um, and I feel like I'm glad we're ending it with this. When we go home, there's a lot of talk from spiritual teachers that home is here, that home is here, that this Earth School is your home. That's not true. Okay. I mean, there's some truth to it, but only when it comes to the students who are here to evolve. Okay, when they're here to evolve into the fifth and sixth and seventh dimensions beyond, Earth will be its school. Okay, it will be its home. Okay, but those who are here assisting humanity, the ones that, and I've talked to so many, and I know that there are going to be people who are listening to this that will get this, when they have spent their whole lives trying to figure out what home is to them, and they haven't been able to figure it out because they know they're not from here, and they know that home is somewhere very, very far away. And then you have teachers that are saying, no, home is here. You got, this is your home. That's not true to them. Okay, so those beings, and there are a substantial number of those beings here helping humanity assist in its evolution right now, this very moment, to get out of this school. Okay, those beings, they will go home. They will go home to the seventh, eighth, ninth dimensions. Some of them will go on to different dimensions and higher dimensions, like the angelics, who are here to help assist in the global preparation of this ascension. And those beings, which I've talked about, the angelics, and they go home. They go home to a home that exists way, 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 way far away from here. They do go home, all of those. And so there's a misunderstanding about what home means to some people. And I feel that in the stuff that I've done with students and clients, they feel discouraged because they've been told by others that home is here. And that's just simply not true. That's a misunderstanding of who we are, who some of us are here trying to do and advance the human race. And to those beings, home is very far away. So they go there. And those are realms way beyond this one, way beyond where the students will go. So that's my nutshell answer to that one.
Thank you. I had no idea it's going to open up that can of worms with that question, but it just kept coming in. You must ask, you must ask. So there it is.
There it is. It's a
Oh my
biggie.
goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, for your time, for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you
here.
for having me. It's always great to be able to spend some energy with you. It's fun. I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much. Sending you so much love. Mwah.
Right back at you. Right back at you. Thank you. I look forward to another time when we get together again. Okay?
For sure. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Uh, Amazing. That was so fabulous. On that note, I wanted to let you know that Franco has a whole is well, he's going to have a whole new place for you to get in touch with him. And so make sure that you check here the description, because I'm going to put it there when he gives to me. It's not ready now that I'm recording, but it will be when this comes out, hopefully. So just make sure you go down there and you can see the new website that he has and new ways for you to connect with him. Also, he has a new book coming up. I know we ran out of time, so I'm just letting you know all of his stuff out now, because he had to go. He has a new book that's going to be coming out either at the end of this year, 2024, or the very beginning of 2025. So look out for that as well. If I do get the information, I will put it on the description underneath this video, and I will update the description once I do receive the information, if it comes on after this goes live. With that, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so that more people can receive these messages and feel the energy. Just feel the energy, right? If it's for you, it is. You're here. I love you, and I talk to you next time. Bye.